A woman seen on a surveillance video putting up a fight while being abducted in Philadelphia has been found safe and the man who snatched her arrested. Carlesha Freeland-Gaither was rescued after being spotted in a car with a smashed-out rear window. Apart from minor injuries, police said she was in a reasonable condition.
The car door creaks open, and a young woman steps out, covered in dirt and grime, her clothes torn, her body battered but still alive. She stumbles, gasping for air, as the weight of 3 days trapped in a stranger's car finally lifts off her shoulders. It's over, but the question lingers in the air: how did she survive? For 72 hours, Carlesha Freeland-Gaither was held captive, forced into a nightmare she could never have imagined. Each passing hour was filled with uncertainty, fear, and the overwhelming terror of not knowing if she would ever see her family again. The physical toll was undeniable, but it was the psychological scars that would stay with her forever. As the authorities move in to rescue her, the truth of what happened behind those closed doors begins to unfold, and it's a truth that will shock the world. The more they learn, the more they realize that Carlesha's bravery, her ability to survive, to fight back, and to outsmart her captor, wasn't just about escaping. It was about something much deeper. Her strength would change everything. Before we begin, if you find this video interesting, please give it a like at the end and tell me what you think about the case. It really helps the channel, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you. It was a crisp November evening in Germantown, Philadelphia. Carlesha Freeland-Gaither, a 22-year-old nursing aide, had just visited her godson and was making her way home. The time was around 9:40 p.m., and the streets were quiet as she walked alone, her steps echoing softly against the pavement. Carlesha had missed the bus, and with no one else around, she was left to make the trek to the bus stop on foot. As she walked, she had no idea that danger was closing in, hidden in the shadows. Unknown to her, a man had been following her. Delvin Barnes, a 38-year-old stranger, watched her every move as she walked, his intentions clear only to him. He approached her under the pretense of needing directions, a harmless enough reason for anyone to stop and help. Carlesha, as kind as she was, didn't think twice as she turned to face him. They exchanged a handshake, a brief gesture of politeness. But what seemed like a simple exchange was anything but. As their hands met, Barnes didn't let go.
I shook his hand. When I tried to let go, realized at that point that he wasn't going to let my hand go.
His grip tightened as he took control of the situation in an instant. For a split second, Carlesha must have felt the cold chill of dread run down her spine. But before she could react, Barnes overpowered her. His strength was too much. He forced her backward, dragging her toward the parked car just a few feet away. Carlesha fought with every ounce of strength she had, her body pushing against his, desperate to break free. Her heart pounded as she struggled, trying to break free from his grasp. She screamed, but the street was empty, and her cries were swallowed by the dark night. And then, in a desperate move to leave behind a trace, Carlesha did something that would come to mean everything. As Barnes yanked her toward the car, she dropped her phone and glasses. Pieces of herself. Pieces of evidence that would later help investigators connect her to this brutal abduction. The phone clattered to the ground, the glass of her eyeglasses shattering against the pavement, a small but crucial clue that would prove pivotal in the case. Just as Barnes shoved her into the car, a witness stepped forward. Dwayne Fletcher, a man who had been walking down the street just a moment before, heard the commotion. He saw Carlesha struggle, her body being forced into the car, and his instincts kicked in. Dwayne immediately dialed 911, his voice shaking with panic and fear as he described what he had just seen. "I saw a man drag a woman into a car," he told the dispatcher, urgency laced in his voice. "The car's rocking. I heard a loud sound. It sounded like a gunshot. She might have been shot." Fletcher, too, was uncertain of what he had just witnessed, but the sheer terror in the scene made his heart race. He couldn't help but feel like he should have done more. But for now, he was doing what he could, calling for help, trying to alert anyone who might be able to stop what was happening in front of him. Meanwhile, just moments after the car sped off, the police arrived at the scene, and soon after, officers found Carlesha's glasses and phone lying on the ground. They confirmed it. This wasn't just some random street encounter. She had been abducted. The phone, once in her hand, now left behind, held the evidence of what had just occurred, proof of her fight and the beginnings of an investigation that would soon unfold.
Philadelphia police posted several new videos on their YouTube channel in connection with that terrifying abduction that was caught on camera that you just saw. Now, the videos are going to help piece together really a chilling timeline at the end of the day here. Take a look. This is the first video that they posted. It shows the moment 22-year-old Carlesha Freeland-Gaither was forced into a car by a man. It is frightening, isn't it, to see her struggling to get away. This was Sunday night in the Germantown section of Philly. Witnesses say the man was wearing a dark hoodie, dark shirt under it, and dark pants.
As the officers started piecing together the fragmented clues, they knew they had to act fast. The hours following Carlesha's abduction were filled with frantic activity and mounting concern. Her family, understandably shaken, had no idea where she was or what she was enduring. Keisha, Carlesha's mother, appeared in front of the cameras, her voice breaking as she described her daughter's last known whereabouts.
Please give me my child. Please give me my baby. Please give me my child. Please. I don't want y'all. We all want nothing with y'all. I just want my daughter. Please let her go.
She explained that Carlesha had been walking home from a visit to her godson, and in a mother's desperate plea, she begged for anyone with information to come forward. The urgency in her voice echoed the pain of not knowing, of feeling helpless as she watched her daughter vanish into the night. Soon after, missing person posters and flyers were printed and distributed across the city, plastered on street corners, and handed out in crowded areas. These posters were an appeal to the public for any clue, any sign that could bring Carlesha home. The search for Carlesha had officially begun, and the entire city seemed to rally behind the effort. News outlets quickly picked up the story, and the abduction footage was aired repeatedly, showing the chilling moment Carlesha was dragged into Barnes's car. The footage spread across television screens, news websites, and social media. The public appeal intensified as more people saw the image of the suspect, the man who had taken Carlesha. But despite the public outcry and the widespread broadcast of the footage, authorities still had little to go on. The suspect's identity remained unknown, and the video, although clear in action, didn't provide enough detail to make an immediate identification. The grainy image of the man's face was obscured by the camera angle and the darkness of the night. The investigation was stalled, and law enforcement was left grappling for the next lead. As word spread, the investigation expanded and tips started pouring in. The $47,000 reward announced by authorities sparked a flood of calls. The tips ranged from the bizarre to the seemingly irrelevant, but every single one was investigated thoroughly. People were reaching out from every corner of the state, some claiming to have seen a man fitting the description, others with vague hunches that had no real connection to the case. The sheer volume of calls made it difficult for investigators to track down every lead, but there was hope in the sea of tips, the possibility that something solid might emerge. However, just as hope began to wane, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A woman living more than 70 miles away from the crime scene called the authorities after noticing unusual debris on her property in Havre de Grace, Maryland. It wasn't much, just a few scattered items, but it was enough to send the investigation in a new direction.
She called us and said that, she said, I don't know if this is going to be of use to you all, but I have a farm and there's some broken glass and some trash on my lawn. So we deployed agents out there to investigate.
When the officers arrived at the site, they found broken glass, candy wrappers, and even a receipt. But what really caught their attention was an earring, tucked among the trash. The earring was more than just a forgotten accessory. It was a deliberate choice, an act of survival, one last attempt to leave a trace of herself in the world. And that wasn't all. Carlesha had been calculating. She had to have known that Barnes would be constantly watching her, controlling her every move. She had learned through her past experiences, through movies, documentaries, and the horror of others' stories, that the first thing a captor takes is your means of communication. Her phone had already been dropped during the abduction, but the earring, an object tied to her, was something she could discard to tell authorities that she was still there, still alive. Her mind was working even while the worst was happening. The items she placed in the plastic bag, shattered glass, zip ties, the earring, and even the candy wrappers were all signs of her determination to fight back, even when her physical strength seemed depleted. Every detail she left behind was part of her plan to be found. She didn't know if she would survive, but she did know this. If she could leave enough traces, someone would find her, and that would be her only chance at survival. And then there was the receipt. It wasn't just a random slip of paper. It had a timestamp from a supermarket in Philadelphia hours before the abduction, a critical link that placed Barnes in Philadelphia, connecting him directly to the events that were unfolding. The timestamp was more than just a moment in time. It was a signpost pointing back to her life before all of this, a life she was desperate to return to. At this point, investigators began to make connections. They linked the debris to Delvin Barnes, the man they had been chasing in connection with Carlesha's abduction. His past crimes were coming to light, and investigators were more convinced than ever that he was the man they were looking for. But while investigators were narrowing in on Barnes, another disturbing lead emerged. The debris site in Maryland had led authorities to believe that Carlesha might be in danger of being disposed of. The search for her body intensified, and the investigation took a more desperate turn. The FBI now focused on the Susquehanna River, a body of water near where the debris had been found.
We came to the conclusion that if somebody wanted to dispose of a body, they would dispose of it there.
Divers were sent into the river, searching its murky depths for any sign of Carlesha. The helicopters flew overhead, scanning the water below for any heat signatures, while agents scoured the shore for any indication of where she might have been discarded.
They also had airplanes up, helicopters up, looking for heat signatures because we believed that we would find a body, her body.
The search was thorough, but it came up empty. Despite the best efforts of investigators, Carlesha's body wasn't found in the river. This didn't deter the FBI. If anything, the intensity of the search only confirmed their fears. They were closing in on a dangerous man who wasn't going to stop until they stopped him. As the investigation deepened, the FBI's focus turned sharply to Delvin Barnes. He wasn't just another suspect in a random crime. Barnes had a violent history that stretched back years, and it was clear he was no stranger to abduction and brutality. Authorities quickly learned that Barnes was already wanted in connection with a kidnapping case in Virginia, where he had targeted a 16-year-old girl just a month earlier. The details of that crime were chilling. Barnes had abducted the girl, held her captive, and subjected her to hours of psychological and physical torture. He showed her pictures of his previous victims, all of whom he had kept for days before disposing of them in cold, calculating fashion. In a horrifying twist, Barnes even dug her grave while asking her how she wanted to die.
16-year-old Richmond girl who narrowly escaped with her life.
They said Barnes took her out back, stripped her naked, poured gasoline and bleach all over her, asked her how she wanted to die, and then started digging a grave.
But the teenage girl had managed to escape just in time and managed to survive. However, despite the harrowing escape, Barnes was still on the run, and now, with Carlesha Freeland-Gaither in his clutches, authorities feared history would repeat itself. The clock was ticking, and every minute that passed made them more anxious about her fate. They feared that Carlesha might meet the same grim end as the victims before her. The pressure was mounting as the search for Barnes escalated. Meanwhile, law enforcement had another lead to follow. Carlesha's ATM card had been used in Maryland, just a short distance from where the debris had been found. It seemed like the breakthrough they had been waiting for. The card's usage was time-stamped just a few hours after the items were discovered in Havre de Grace, Maryland, putting Barnes in the same vicinity as the crime scene. This connection tied Barnes to the area, but there was a catch. The ATM footage was blurry, making it difficult to make a positive ID. The image of the person using the card was indistinct, and the camera angles provided only a vague silhouette. Authorities couldn't yet confirm it was Barnes, but the possibility loomed large. They were getting closer, inching toward an identification, but the clarity they needed remained frustratingly out of reach. And then came the realization. Carlesha herself had been thinking ahead, knowing that something as simple as her ATM card could help authorities trace her last known movements. In the midst of her captivity, she willingly gave Barnes her ATM PIN. She knew that if he used her card, it would leave a trail, and that trail would show exactly where she had been. In a situation where every detail mattered, Carlesha, despite her fear, used her intelligence and instinct to give authorities the best chance of tracking her down. She was thinking beyond the immediate terror, hoping that the card's use would provide crucial information to help the investigation.
I just knew if I gave him my card number and gave him the information, then that might be helpful to know where I was next from the transaction.
Then came another critical lead. Investigators started to wonder if Barnes had spent the money immediately after withdrawing it, and that's when they focused on a supermarket just a few miles away from where the card was used. The idea was simple but powerful. If Barnes had withdrawn money in that area, he might have used it nearby. The investigators traced the purchase, and when they checked the surveillance footage from the supermarket, they saw something crucial. A man, dressed in dark clothing, walked into the store around the same time the card was used. As he entered the frame, he lifted his hand to his face in an attempt to obscure his features, but the camera still captured his movements. The footage, while still grainy, was a breakthrough. For the first time, law enforcement had a clearer image of the man they believed was Delvin Barnes. This was the moment the investigation shifted. They finally had a face to match the crimes, a suspect who had been lurking in the shadows up until now.
And used Carlesha Freeland-Gaither's ATM card at a bank in Maryland some 9 hours after she was kidnapped. And like her chilling abduction, the transaction was also caught on camera.
Late last night, the FBI released surveillance video of who they call a person of interest in the abduction of Carlesha Freeland-Gaither. It was taken Monday at a gas station convenience store in Aberdeen, Maryland. As police worked to piece together the clues, they also released these images, which were taken about 9 hours after Sunday's kidnapping. They show a man using Freeland-Gaither's ATM card at a PNC bank, also in Aberdeen. In a time of uncertainty, her family calls the bank transaction a good sign.
Obviously, she had to give them the PIN number, so we're hopeful that she's still alive and active.
But what had Carlesha truly gone through? To understand the depths of her ordeal, we must go back to the very night she was taken, November 2nd, 2014, when her life changed forever.
After watching so many movies, I've realized the first thing they take from you is any way to call somebody. It was like either take it with you and he can throw the phone out somewhere where nobody will find it, or keep your phone right here where hopefully people that know you know this is something that you really do and they can find you.
At 9:45 p.m., once inside the car, Carlesha's mind raced, but she remained sharp. Her eyes scanned the interior, searching for something, anything, that could give her a chance. Then she saw it, a hammer under the seat. She knew this was her only shot. She grabbed it quickly, and in one swift motion, she struck him on the head. Blood splattered everywhere, and for a moment, Carlesha thought she might have a chance to escape, but her captor, Delvin Barnes, was relentless. He turned furious, yanking her back into the car and continuing his grip on her. The fight wasn't over, but it was slipping away. With the hammer in her hand, she used it again, not on him, but on the window. The sound of the glass shattering echoed through the car, creating a loud noise that would later confuse the witness, Dwayne Fletcher, who believed he had heard a gunshot. But no shell casings were ever found, and it became clear the explosion of sound was the hammer shattering the glass as Carlesha fought for freedom.
Under his seat, I see a hammer. I hit him with the hammer. He was holding his head. There was blood everywhere. And then I hit the window with the hammer. I thought I was safe. I was free. He turns around and pulls me back in.
Barnes didn't stop there. By 10 p.m., he forced Carlesha into the trunk of the car and slammed it shut. In the dark confines of the trunk, she could hear the car's engine roar to life as it sped off, leaving the city behind. She was trapped in darkness with only the sound of her own breath to keep her company.
I could see my home. I could see my job. It's like my life was passing before my eyes.
By the next day, 3rd of November, around 3 a.m., As the hours dragged on, Carlesha couldn't tell where they were or how far they had gone. Her body ached from the fight, the fear, and the confinement. She had no idea how long she had been in the trunk, but she knew it was far from over. She had to keep her wits about her.
It was still touching me on top, or some part of him was still holding me. I felt like if I nudge or move or try, I just can't think of a way to really get out.
In the moments of terror, Carlesha thought of her grandmother, the woman who had raised her, who had loved her when her own parents couldn't. Her grandmother's face was the only thing that kept her going. She had promised to survive, and she couldn't break that promise now. And when the car stopped again around 5 a.m., Carlesha was pulled out of the trunk. Though she had no idea where she was thrust into the cold air of a desolate field. Barnes didn't let her out of his sight. Even when he allowed her to move, he was always near her. She couldn't escape, but she wasn't ready to give up either. And that was when he asked her to dispose of the trash in the car, and Carlesha saw her chance. While she stuffed the trash into a plastic bag, she made sure to drop the glass, the zip ties, and the earring, all the items that told the story of her captivity. But even as she did this, she remained cautious. Could she run? Could she risk it? The fear of being caught, of not knowing what he might do to her next, kept her still.
I wanted to know if he was going to kill me or if he was going to rape me. Or both.
But then, Carlesha did something remarkable. She engaged him in conversation, asking him about his life. She didn't know why, but it felt like the right thing to do. She started to disarm him. She learned he had a daughter, and with each word he spoke about her, Carlesha sensed a glimmer of his humanity. He spoke about his daughter like he cared for her deeply, and Carlesha held on to that. Maybe he wasn't just a monster, maybe he was still human. She tried to connect with that part of him. She wasn't giving up, but instead she was playing the game. And then Barnes opened up, telling her about his previous victims, painting a terrifying picture of what he had done. That's when the true horror hit her. Carlesha realized she wasn't dealing with just anyone. She was facing a serial killer, someone who had held other victims captive, just as he was holding her now. He described his past crimes without remorse, and she understood that she wasn't just another victim in a string of random abductions. She was his next prize. But by the third day, after every information the investigators had gathered, everything was about to change. By November 5th, 3 days after Carlesha's abduction, a terrifying realization gripped authorities. Carlesha wasn't just another random victim. The FBI had identified her captor. The 37-year-old man, Delvin Barnes, wasn't new to violent crimes. In fact, his past was a catalog of terror. The FBI had to act fast. A team was dispatched to Barnes's residence in Richmond, Virginia to interrogate his family, neighbors, and ex-partners. One ex-wife confirmed that Barnes's car, a gray Ford Taurus, matched the vehicle seen during the abduction. The investigation was gaining momentum, but there was a twist. Barnes had been clever. As agents scoured the city, they stumbled upon an unexpected break. The dealership where Barnes had purchased the car had installed a tracking device on it. This wasn't just a fluke. A vehicle tracking system was standard procedure for those with bad credit. The dealership had taken precautions, knowing that Barnes might fail to make payments. This stroke of luck became a turning point. The GPS tracker pinpointed Barnes's location, still in Maryland, just outside of Jessup. As agents swarmed Jessup, Barnes continued with his plans. He was not hiding. Barnes had been on the move, switching license plates, and that day, Barnes was parked at a strip mall and planned to hijack another vehicle. The authorities were closing in, but they needed to act quickly before Barnes had the chance to disappear again. By 5:15 p.m., ATF Special Agent David Cheplack was nearby, ready to follow up on the vehicle description. As he approached the local strip mall parking lot, a gray Ford Taurus caught his eye. The vehicle had a black garbage bag covering the broken window. This was it, the car, just like the one from the abduction footage. But the absence of movement inside the car made the situation even more urgent. Could Carlesha be inside? The team moved in. But there was a problem. They couldn't confirm the vehicle was his. Carlesha's fate was still unknown. They had to act carefully. The agents were instructed to wait for backup, but Agent Rolagoas made a decisive call. If the car moves, we take it. And then a breakthrough. Barnes finally emerged from the back seat. The agents immediately swarmed the car, guns drawn, ready to confront the man who had caused so much fear and pain. In the midst of the chaotic arrest, the agents could hardly believe their ears. Carlesha was alive. As the door opened, her voice was heard from inside the car. "What's your name?" When the agent replied, "My name is Carlesha. I'm the one you want," the team finally breathed a collective sigh of relief. She was alive. Once the car was secured and Barnes was arrested, Carlesha was rushed to the hospital, where she was reunited with her grandmother. The emotional moment was overwhelming for both of them and for everyone watching. Carlesha's promise to survive had been fulfilled, but the trauma was far from over.
Tonight, the FBI and the Philadelphia Police Department have great news that Carlesha Freeland has been rescued. Her abductor has been arrested. In Maryland. She's in good shape, has some injuries, but was taken to the hospital. She is talking to the agents. The subject's name is Delvin Barnes, Delvenbarnes, 37-year-old male. He is being currently held on a warrant based out of the Charles City County, Virginia Sheriff's Office for attempted capital murder, assault, malicious injury with acid, explosives, or fire. This was from a previous case that he was being investigated for.
Her rescue made national headlines, and Dwayne Fletcher, the man who had witnessed the abduction, was hailed as a hero.
How y'all doing? My name is Dwayne Fletcher.
Dwayne Fletcher got a hero's welcome in City Council, along with a commendation and handshakes. His call to police as 22-year-old Carlesha Gaither was being dragged away by an accused kidnapper, credited with helping save the victim's life.
My daughter's hero, my hero. Like I said, if it wasn't for him, my daughter wouldn't be here right now.
Fletcher explaining the honor marked a triumphant turnaround from a troubled past life.
When we get an opportunity to just show people that we can do better, we can. It's just gotta give us a chance.
Despite his doubts about whether he could have done more, he was celebrated for his bravery. When Carlesha learned of Fletcher's actions that night, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. 1 year later, they spoke for the first time. The phone call was emotional, filled with thanks and acknowledgement of the role Fletcher had played in her rescue. Also, the detective who promised to bring her back home was appreciated.
And there's one detective in particular that made a promise. Come on up here. And tell him what you said. Come on.
Let her say.
He sat in my kitchen in front of me and told me, "I'm bringing your daughter home. I'm bringing your daughter home." I said, "All right." He said, "No, I'm bringing your daughter home." And he brought my baby home.
Thank you.
He brought her right home.
Good job.
Thank you.
Also, Fletcher, forever marked by the events of that night, had turned his life around. He had opened a boxing gym in North Philadelphia, where he now teaches self-defense to young women and girls, hoping to prevent the kind of trauma Carlesha endured from ever happening again. As for Delvin Barnes, the monster who had tormented so many, he confessed to his crimes, admitting everything from the abduction to the sexual assault. He pled guilty to federal kidnapping charges and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. For Carlesha, the journey toward healing was long. The nightmares still lingered and she struggled with the trauma. But now she found solace in the love of her family and the joy of motherhood. Her son, born after her harrowing experience, became her new source of hope. Each moment she spent with him reminded her of what life was supposed to be: innocent, free, and happy. Carlesha's story had come full circle. Looking back on the events of 2014, she realized how deeply grateful she was that it was her who had been taken, and not someone else. In her own words, "God needed me to go through it because I could handle it. I'm still here, and I'm still living. I get to tell my story and hopefully help somebody else. Even when the odds seem impossible, we must never give up." Carlesha's resilience and bravery had changed everything.
Since then, Carlesha has been piecing her life back together. She is now a mom to a 7-year-old boy.
We haven't really heard much about you for a decade now, so how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
At times during our interview, emotions were raw.
That you tried befriending your kidnapper in order to, I think, stay alive, would you say?
Yes. Sorry.
Carlesha is now speaking out in hopes that her story can help others.
I'm hoping that, that parents, family members who have somebody also out there who's going through this right now have faith